Hi there, everybody, and welcome to our next instalment of our live question and answer with Peter Vermeulen, following on from Peter's presentation last week on free time management. So welcome, Peter. Thank you for joining us again for this event. We're really pleased to be able to stream this live on our Facebook page, which you'll have to bear with us as we navigate our way through it. So again, welcome, Peter. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll get lots of questions in. Please do send any questions that you have in directly underneath the video, and we'll put these to Peter. It may be around Peter's topic of free time management, or could be about some of the other topics that Peter has covered in the last wee while. Welcome, Peter, again.
Thank you very much.
Some questions and comments to come in. Following on from Peter's presentation last week on it may be around. Okay, so we're just while we're waiting for some of the questions to come in, Peter, one of the questions that I had about the topic that you were covering was around how might we implement some of the suggestions that you made. Sometimes it's maybe easier said than done, because maybe we don't get the engagement from our child or a young person at home. So any sort of tips or suggestions that you could maybe give to parents would be great.
Yep. Well, many of the suggestions that I did all come down to the same one suggestion: organize the free time for your children, organize the time and the free time for the whole family. Now, if some children are used to work with timetables and day schedules and planners at school, but probably many families don't have them at home, and that means we have to introduce it to the children. Because some of them, autistic children, they are very specific and well, very strict in contexts. Some things only belong to school and other things only belong to home. And if at home you start, for instance, using a day planner that children know from school, some of them will resist it, because then it's very confusing for them. Is this school or home? A way to avoid this and a way to get children more engaged is to involve them in the planning. And say, look, from now on, and don't introduce it as something for the children. Don't say, look what mommy or daddy has made for you. Now, from now on, we're going to follow the schedule that is up to the fridge here, or that we stick anywhere. And say, oh, I think we have a long holiday. We are not allowed to do what we do in normal holidays. Well, let's make it fun and let's make our own holiday planner. And call it, for instance, now a holiday planner rather than a day planner, because day is such an abstract thing. Holiday also seems to be more fun than day planner. So involve them. And one of the sessions I did is to make clear where they do have a choice and not. But there should be moments during the day when you say, no, and then you can choose what to do. Here are some pictures or cars, or here you have a post-it where you can write something. And the more actively they are involved, the more it becomes not something that is imposed on them, but something that they are also responsible for, something that they made together with you. So it's a family holiday planner then. And you could even go a step further. And that's a trick that I sometimes play. Don't tell it to my children. Well, they're grown up, they know it anyway. But sometimes I did as if I have a very bad memory. And I said, oh, you should help mommy remember that. So they could also, and that means that they have to look at the schedule, because if you put things there for yourself, then you can say, mommy, you forgot about the laundry. It's time to do the laundry now. It's not that children should be bossy, but the more they see it as, wow, this is something we do now as a family, the less it becomes something that they are forced to do. So you increase their motivation, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's about that sort of taking ownership of it, isn't it? And having an element of control over it. It's not being done to the child. It's something they're doing with the child.
And it's, you know, control is one of the things that increases our, and that's a difficult word, intrinsic motivation. You know, you can put out a reward system for following the day schedule at home, but then, you know, reward systems can be okay, but then you do it only for the rewards. And what we want in the long term by organizing free time is that children, when they grow up and become adults, that they have learned the skills to organize their own free time. And that's what the aim is at the long term, to show them, look, you can organize your own free time if you want. As children, of course, the younger the child is and the more needs a child has, the more, of course, parents have to organize it. I'm aware of that. But those of you who have children who are a little bit older, have more cognitive abilities, please make them actively involved, and yes, give them some ownership. That's a nice word.
Great. So we have lots of questions coming in here, Peter. So one of the questions that we have here is, a lot of parents maybe worry about their child spending, maybe, to use the word, too much time on their kind of preferred activities or a particular interest that they have, that maybe, you know, kind of excludes other activities, maybe family-based activities. So what would be your view on that?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I addressed. And if people are able to look back at the session I did, I showed at a given moment a choice board. And what is a choice board? Where you tell children, okay, we make pictures. I mean, imagine that a favorite activity is, and it often is, playing games, you know, on the tablet or the iPad or the whatever device. And then you can say, okay, you take a picture of their favorite game, Minecraft, for instance. And then you put up the schedule either for the day or for the week. It depends on what the child can. And you put, for instance, in there 6 times the Minecraft. And then you put in there 2 pictures of another free time activity and 3 pictures of another free time activity. And then you say, look, you can play your favorite Minecraft, but it's limited to 5 times today. Or it's limited to 5 times a week, depending on what the activity is and how long it takes. You could also make it in a timer and saying, look, today you are allowed to 3 hours of Minecraft. And for those children who can read the clock, obviously. The other one was for children who cannot read the clock. Then you show the number of times, and they even not have to be able to count, because they can just see, if I've already taken 4 of them, there's only 1 time left. Those who can read a clock, you can attach times to that and saying, look, from now on, and again, it's about ownership, but ownership within certain limits. They cannot decide how long they will play their favorite activity or engage in their favorite topic of interest, but they can decide when. So you could, for instance, say you're entitled to 2 hours of Minecraft today. It's up to you to decide when you're going to use them. But it's like, you know, savings on a bank account. When it's empty, it's empty.
Yeah.
Now, one thing to do, again, it's giving them ownership. They can decide. So we're not saying it's enough now, because that's the most frustrating for children. At a given moment, as a parent, you start to think, Jesus, he's already spending 2.5 hours playing game on his mobile phone. I think he need to do something else. Now, the moment you interrupt that, I can predict you that any human being autistic or not, would be frustrated.
Yeah.
It's like when you're enjoying a good meal at restaurant and suddenly the waiter would come and would take away your plate and say, it's time for dessert now. Even if you like the dessert, you would resist.
Yeah.
So even if you try to replace it with another favorite activity, it's better to announce the end or to give them control over the end of the activity, and use it like a kind of a limited number of time. So they can decide how long, but they can choose when.
Yeah, so that preparedness that you're introducing, that's great. We have a question here, again around, and probably is a hot topic, around gaming, and you've touched on it in your presentation, touched on it there as well. So my son is in his late teens, and is really focused on gaming, and really, you know, that's what he wants to do all the time, and they find it very, very difficult to redirect him onto other activities. So what would your advice be around introducing new activities to somebody who's maybe not explored something like that before?
Okay. Try to have the specific interest contaminate another activity. So if your son is kind of, some people call it even addicted, but okay, let's say he's only interested in gaming, try to find an activity that has some connection to gaming. That could be, for instance, to start, I don't know if the boy can write, but he could, for instance, write a review about the game and send it into the school newspaper, or send it to nephews, or make comments on his or her Facebook if he has one, and saying, from now on, I'm going to write reviews. So writing about the game, or writing about a certain level, giving tips and tricks to other players, that is still connected to the gaming, but it's already another activity. So try to think of connecting it. That also means if your son is into games, try to gamify other activities. Try to make games of another activity that, for instance, many of them love the fact of levels. Well, try to find an activity where you could also say, and if you reach that level, you're entitled to, and that could even be involved into, for instance, doing domestic activities that you gamify. Let's see how many cups you can get in the dishwasher in 1 minute.
Always a good one. I try that in my house.
Yeah. So there's lots of, but don't say you have to stop gaming now and do the dishes, because that will never work. I know that. But try to find something where you have the contamination of the games. Now, the first thing you need to do as a parent, and that's always my advice to parents of children who game a lot, is please play the game yourself. Because otherwise you will not understand what is so attractive about the game, and getting good ideas for finding the contamination, you need to know what's in the game. Another thing could be that, and that's a smaller step you can say, is try to introduce another activity, but also one on a device.
Okay, great advice there. And I think it is, I particularly picked up on that point of understanding the game yourself, so that you can have that shared interest as well, I suppose. And have
why not? And again, no, this is an advice for all parents of younger children who are not yet into gaming, but the moment they're into gaming, please play together in the beginning, because it's hard to change it with a teenager. I know that the teenager who is already involved and who is so skilled, when you come in as a parent, you will be doing a bad job in the game. That's what my son at the given moment said. Daddy, I'm always losing when you play with me. So get away. That was already too late. Well, we did find a game that we could play together, because we both have an interest in soccer and football. So we played FIFA, and he always won. I don't care. But at least we had a shared experience, because too often, I'm pretty sure that many children, even if they are into games, if you as a parent would say, come on, let's find a game that we can play together, well, you will have a shared experience, and you will get to know what is so attractive about games, and that will give you ideas to gamify other things.
Yeah, great advice there. Absolutely great. Another question that we've had in here. And probably moving away just slightly from the topic of free time. So we've had a question from a parent here of her 21-year-old daughter, who is kind of touching face and picking, particularly, I think, I may be reading into it, but around when the time is unstructured, it's sort of moving to that kind of touching and picking the face. So any advice about how to sort of maybe redirect some of that?
Yeah, well, the word redirection is indeed a good thing. Now, as long as she doesn't harm herself, I would say it's not that bad. But when you see this happening in unstructured times, one thing to do is to avoid too much and too long structured time, actually to prevent this kind of behaviors. Another thing is that if the daughter engages in that kind of behaviors, not to see this as bad and say, stop doing that, without giving an alternative. Because if it's unstructured time, so try to distract her into another activity, and preferably don't wait too long, because at a given moment, what we see is that a behavior that is originally having the meaning of kind of getting relaxed because there's a little bit of stress, because there's unstructured times, no predictability. When it takes on too long, it's harder to get out of the behavior. So don't wait to try to distract. And again, as with the gaming, the advice is actually the same. Try if this young woman goes into behaviors that involve touching, it probably means she needs tactile stimulation, or she prefers it. So touching materials that could give the same experience, more or less, and that's something you will have to find out by giving her different materials and asking her to touch. You can do it again together and watch her behavior, whether she likes it or not. Because, you know, when the activities, which some call stereotyped activities, but I don't care about the name, involve your own body, then it's hard to, you know, distract to another thing, and it's hard to structure the behavior there, because we always have our own body with us. If you can get the same behaviors but doing some tactile stimulation with an object, then you can use the object also in the day planner and saying, look, then there's time for you to do that, and when it's not there, we do something else. So you can also kind of more organize these kind of you could call it stimming. It's a kind of stimulating yourself. So find out what the real sensory experience is that she wants to have with the behavior. And it could be tactile. If it's something with the face, well, maybe putting something on the face, like a cap or whatever, could also be an alternative. So try to find out what gives her the good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say to that person who has sent that question in, if you'd like to kind of explore a little bit more about that, because that's quite a specific question there, then please do contact our advisors. Believe it or not, that is a question that we're quite often asked. So please do contact our autism advisors if you'd like to talk a little bit more in detail about that. We have a question here from a parent, and again, this is something that we've been hearing a lot of through our advice line just recently, is that lockdown and COVID-19 has meant that a lot of the activities that our children would have been participating in are no longer there. And, you know, clubs have been shut down, parks are no longer available, etc. So the thing, and these are usually things that, you know, the children are really love doing and they really need to do, and it's hugely important and part of that routine that they had pre-lockdown. And we're seeing a lot of stress and frustration and annoyance from a lot of people, and as you touched on there, that increased stimming, you know, to work through some of that anxiety. Are there any suggestions that you can make in terms of how this parent can support their child with that?
Well, one thing that I would like to talk about first is, you know, a lot of kids now miss the social activities they had before, you know, the sports clubs indeed, where they could sport together. Well, I saw a father here in my own street. His daughter was in a hockey club. She was not allowed to hockey, but what he did, and that's actually creative, is to have his daughter invite another girl from the hockey club to challenge each other with all kind of hockey activities. So at a given moment, I was going out on the street, walk out my dog, and there was the daughter playing with her hockey stick to try to get the ball underneath a chair that was standing in the street. And that was the challenge she gave to the other girl. So, but then of course you need to have mobile devices that can, or you could take pictures of it. And that way you can play together without being physically together. Another thing that we, for instance, did with adults is walking out together without actually being together. So everybody walked on their own, but then you took a picture and you showed, I'm here now. And through, if you have 4G connection, that's the only necessary thing. Okay, you can still sport together without sporting together physically. Yeah. Try to do that, because then they will have the feeling that you could call it the Corona version of sporting and doing things together. And it's more fun than just chatting through Zoom, because that's still sitting still and not doing something. So try to do things online with 1 or 2 or 3 depending. And then about the stimming, again, the advice is try to organize the stimming as well. And try to fill in as much as possible the day with all kind of activities that and again, as I said, it doesn't always have to be play or free time activities. Some of these kids, they would love it if you can say, I need your help with, and then you call some domestic talk. And even for some of them, instead of saying, get me everything from the fridge and set the table, you could say, could you get the milk from the fridge? I'm thinking about kids here who are having lower cognitive abilities. They don't have an overview of the whole activity. You could say, go and get the milk, and then they come and bring it to the table and say, oh, I forgot about the spread. Could you go and get the spread now? And you send them to the fridge 5 times to and back. That's physical activity in the house. It's safe. It's not outdoors. And they are busy doing things. And you can easily fill 15 minutes with that. Some of these children don't mind. Of course, the ones who will say, hey, couldn't you say that all at once? Okay, then you don't do it. But then you can still involve them in repairing things at home. So keep them as much as possible busy, which I know is a huge challenge for parents. I'm aware of that. But exactly therefore, because parents will say, I still have to cook as well. Well, give them some task in the cooking. And then you can say, wow, you made soup. Even if they only cut the carrot in 3 pieces, so to speak, you can be very rewarding. And that will avoid kids engaging in stimming and other activities that are afterwards very difficult to change. And last thing about stimming is also a form of communication, saying, please, I need help here, because either I'm bored or I'm stressed or I'm anxious. That's when people engage in stimming. So try to see what's underneath, what the need is underneath the stimming.
Yeah, absolutely. And the person who asked that question has just come back saying that as you touched on there, it's the physical activity and finding other opportunities for her son to engage in that physical activity, and being able to go places. I think a lot of us are finding very stressful. Here in Scotland, we have a 5-mile guidance in terms of how far you can go, so that's proving quite restrictive. And you touched on it there around stress, and how this is, people's stress is starting to bubble up. And one of the questions that we've had in as well is around stress, and I suppose it's that parental stress of trying to, and you touched on it in your presentation around there's work that has to go on in the background in terms of prepping for some of this structure, and the questions kind of coming from that perspective of if parents are being teacher, worker, parent, laundry maid, all those different roles that we're now sort of shouting for our time. How might parents sort of manage their stress in all of this?
When I talked about organizing time and free time, I advise parents to organize me time for themselves. And me time means that there are specific moments during the day, and you plan it. And at that moment, you tell your kids to leave you alone. You can even close yourself up in your bedroom or whatever, or you can visualize it and say, mommy is only available when the green card is out, the red card is out, means mommy won't listen to you. And it can be hard for kids, but as long as you make it predictable, they will not like it, but they will be able to cope with it if it's more predictable, rather than at a given moment. And I can understand, as a parent, you feel responsible. So what you do is you give and you give and you give and you give, and you drain yourself. And when you're completely empty, or when your bucket is completely full, I don't mind how you phrase it, then suddenly you say, and now it's enough. Now you need to leave mommy alone. I need some time for myself. And that's when kids can't cope with it, because it comes out of the blue. They can't see it come. So plan it and put it also on on a schedule. That's why it should be a family schedule, and saying, look, that's the time when mommy will not play with you. And that's the times where you allow them to stim or to engage in their stereotyped activities. And please don't feel guilty about it then, because then it's me time for you as a parent. And even if your kids are engaging in activities that you say, I should work on that, no, there's going to be a time after Corona. Okay. And although kids are maybe now at risk for developing habits that will be difficult to change after Corona, you will be able to change them. So don't try to take too much as a parent. Think of yourself. You know, the people from the Atlas program phrase it as on the aircraft.
Yeah.
Put your own oxygen mask on first before you give it to your child. Well,
yeah.
here it's the same. Parents need the oxygen.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I think that's huge. It is hugely important for parents right now to remember themselves in all of this. And that can sometimes feel easier said than done and can feel impossible. But, you know, say an extra 10 minutes on a computer game.
Yes, and yeah, you're right, Joanna. You know, it doesn't have to be, I now leave mommy alone for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But if you know you're going to have, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes a couple of times a day, and you plan it, you know, probably the moment, only the fact that you know I have some 10, 15 minutes will make you be able to take in more in the time before, because you know you're going to have your 15 minutes. If you wait until it's too late for yourself, then you know, you build up the frustrations and the anger that you can have as a parent as well. And what about me? I'm here too. It's okay to be angry. So therefore, plan it.
Absolutely. And, you know, I completely echo that. You know, if it's all right as a parent to feel frustrated, and do pick up the phone. Our colleagues at Scottish Autism, they're monitoring the page as well, and I see that they have put details of our advice line up there. So, you know, if you are at that stage where you're just thinking, do you know what, I just need to tell somebody about what's happening, please do give us a ring. You know, that's what we're here to chat about that with you and be there with you through that, because we absolutely understand this is massively challenging for a lot of parents. So we have one final question here, Peter, that's come in from an adult with autism. What advice can you offer to help self-structure time? So they have limited phone and one-to-one support in place. So how can they manage their own free time themselves?
You know, that's a hard thing if there is little support available. What I would advise to any adult on the spectrum is start at least organizing a part of the day that you can put into routines. Because routines, you know, if you have to every day think about what am I going to do today, that probably demands a lot of energy and a lot of creativity and flexibility. And, you know, it's not bad to have routines. So ask for support to get a certain routine once and then follow that routine. And what you can do then is, once you're familiar with the routine and your brain doesn't have to think anymore about how am I going to organize my day, then you could ask yourself or try to build in a little flexibility, so that at a given moment you will have a more varied life. In the beginning, it will be very strict and saying, every morning I do this, I do domestic talk, then I read the news, then I do that, then I do that. And then you could say, let's switch two things today, and make small changes, but start with routines. That I think is the most important. And what you could do is, and because otherwise you're going to be stressed, is you make a schedule once with routines that you follow every day, but you leave in maybe 2 or 3 blank spaces during the day, because life is never completely predictable. Maybe somebody wants you to do something, or you have to fill in a certain form, or you have to make a phone call. And if it's not in your routine, you will be stressed because you won't know where to put it. So if you have 2 or 3 blank spaces in your program, that's for the unpredictable events that you can put in there.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. And I think as well, when your previous talk on how to be your own coach as well might be useful to that particular.
I think, yeah.
As well, I think that we would find that useful. So thank you so much, Peter. That was absolutely brilliant. Don't know about anybody else, but I learned a great deal just listening to some of those responses. So thank you so much for joining us, Peter. Very much appreciate it. Anybody can find links to any of the talks that Peter has done on our website, including links to the Q&As as well. So if you want to go back and listen to one of Peter's responses again, you can do that. Again, do feel free to contact us through the advice line if you'd like to explore in detail a little bit more about what we've been talking about today, and one of our advisors can support you with that. So again, thank you so much, Peter.
It's a pleasure. And you know, one last thing, this is a very difficult time for all of us. But if I look at the majority of people, it shows that humankind has a lot of resilience. So please don't try to be perfect in these times. These are the terms when we should allow ourselves, all of us, to make mistakes and to be imperfect. But maybe that's what we needed to learn from this time, that nobody's a perfect parent and nobody's a perfect colleague and nobody's a perfect child. So let's learn from this, and we will all survive this. I'm pretty confident that we are stronger than we think.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think they are very, very wise words to end this session on. So thank you, Peter, for that. Just to follow up as well, just to draw people's attention to our next live event that we have is with Richard Mills from Autism, and he is going to be delivering a talk on coping with modern life, lessons from the ancient world. And I don't know if anybody has ever had the opportunity to listen to Richard in any of his other talks that he's done in the past. It's absolutely brilliant. So I would really, really recommend and really urge you to try and catch that one if you can. So that will be on the 25th of June at 12 noon. And you can catch details about how to join that on our Facebook page and also our website. If you can't join us on the 25th, at 12 noon, don't worry. As with all of our talks, links will be put on our website and you can revisit them at a time that suits you. So again, thank you so much to everybody for joining us this afternoon, and thank you again to Peter for his wonderful insight.
With pleasure, with pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.